Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be running some numbers. I'm going to try not to bore you to death, but I'm going to turn all my chicken scratch over here that I've got on this table into something that makes sense and something that you guys can follow along with. And I've got plenty of notes in my phone and everything from this last load. If you guys have been following along, we've got a few videos, kind of a 4-video series here that all go right in order together. So all the way from processing this load, receiving this load, I guess, was really the first thing. We got this load of logs. It was a 35-ton load of logs that we received, and it was strictly oak, all oak. So it was a perfect load to do this test on. And if you guys haven't seen any of those videos, I'll give you just a quick little catch up. So it was a 35-ton load, all oak. I wanted to process all of that without any other product involved, that we have laying around the yard. I wanted to quantify what we get out of that load, that tractor trailer load, that 35-ton load. And I have since done that. I've run the whole load. We've crated up the whole load, including the resplits, including the stove wood pieces. And I'm gonna be running some numbers and trying to make this as easy to follow along with as possible. I also quantified all of the debris, including the sawdust, so anything that comes through our disc cleaner, anything that we consider waste, because we ultimately pay the same amount for all of the waste as we do the finished product. So that's something that we definitely have to take into consideration when we're factoring our costs. I also took into consideration all of the labor involved, so all the man hours, and I'm gonna be itemizing all that out for you as well. And I mean, I'm doing this for you guys as well as for me. I mean, we have never really broken things down nearly to this extent, and we've needed to, in all honesty. I mean, this is going to be great information, great knowledge for us moving forward, and we'll definitely have a great idea of where we're at as far as costs and where we're at as far as our margins. And I'm going to share our margins with you as well as far as best case scenario, and all the way to worst case scenario, being if we were to sell it all from here loosely by the bucket, that's definitely our least expensive way of selling firewood. And then all the way up to if we were to take all this wood, kiln dry it. Of course, there's more time involved doing that, more costs involved running the kiln, and then you've also got to take into consideration the volume and expense of equipment that it has taken to do what we do, and to do what we've done with this load of logs in the time frame, and especially man hours that we've got into it, which is not very much considering the volume of wood we put out, that this load has made, and the amount that we can generate from it. Granted, there is more to it than just than just what we've got in it right now. We've got to let that sit. If we're going to season it, we've got to let it sit in those baskets for quite some time, occupying yard space that could be utilized in a different way and generate us income in a different way. So that all has to be considered as well. And then of course, racking it out, delivering it, the way that we deliver it, stacking it for the customer, all that comes at a cost. So definitely got to take that into consideration when we do look over these numbers. But I'm going to go ahead and get everything, put the pencil to the paper and get some things figured out. And hopefully, by the end of this video, we'll definitely crunch the numbers together and look at things and see what's possible. So. All right, guys, so today's video is gonna be a little bit different. I've been sitting here crunching numbers. I hope you guys have been watching the previous videos. It'll definitely help, if you haven't, to go back and watch the last 2 or 3 videos just to get an idea of what we've been doing and what I've been trying to do. And I got a load of logs in recently. It was a 35-ton load, 35.01 tons to be exact, and it was a fully oak load. There was no other species in there, so I didn't have to worry about sorting out any species. I was able to process this entire load.
all at once and not have to, you know, typically I would set my hickory aside or set my cherry aside, or if I were to get any odd species, set those aside. But I was able to process this entire load, not mix it with any other wood. I made sure not to do that. Same with the debris, meaning anything that comes through that disc cleaner, any of the sawdust, all of it. I tried to separate it out and quantify it, and I wanted to get weights on the sawdust and the debris, which I did that, and as well as get an idea how much end product we got out of it as far as sellable firewood and then what we call stove wood. So just you know, kind of making something that makes us just a little bit of money out of something that a lot of guys just end up throwing away. And I mean, you know, in all honesty, it's may not even be worth doing it the prices that we're doing it for when it comes to that stove wood. But I like to just, I mean, we've got quite a few customers that rely on us for that, and it gives them a little better price point and that kind of thing to be able to heat their home or just have a little fun out in the backyard burning a fire. And I'd hate to take that product off of our availability, so we'll probably stick with it. You know, we may just do less of it. First thing I wanted to get into, and I'm kind of just winging this here, I have a whole lot of information that I've put together. So the first thing I want to go into is the equipment end of things involved in making the firewood at the pace that we're able to make it. We've got a whole lot invested in some equipment, and you know, as I write these numbers down, it's a little bit unbelievable even to myself. First thing on the list is the firewood processor, and those things retail now for $205,000, the same unit we have now. We did not give that for it, but I want to just give a replacement cost, the idea of what it would cost to replace the same equipment that we have currently at the current value, which is 2026 right now. August 2026, it's $205,000 for that 60C. The Easton made disc cleaner with the outfeed conveyor, which we have separated the two. We've got the outfeed conveyor on the end of the processor, but that's $26,200. Then our power pack, Easton made power pack, which is the same price I believe as when we bought it. It's $4,500. So that's one thing that has stuck the same. Then we've got that Blockbuster outfeed conveyor, that 32-foot conveyor, which is $20,000, which we did just recently purchase that, so that should be a pretty accurate number on that. The Multitech sorting tumbler that follows the Blockbuster conveyor is $38,000. That's what we bought it for. I have recently heard that they've increased the price on those pretty significantly. And then beyond that, I've got these kind of out of order. So if you guys were looking at your list, I'm going to go down toward the bottom, and that outfeed conveyor there, it's actually that chicken litter conveyor that we're using it. And I'm just putting our purchase price, our used purchase price of $16,000 right there. And I think those are new. They're around like $36,000 if I'm not mistaken, but we purchased it for right at $16,000, and we bought it, I think, a year and a half ago maybe at this point. Then we've got our Bobcat T190, which I put a used purchase value of about $16,000 on that. I don't want to put a new, I mean, we also have a Caterpillar 265 that we recently purchased that's $90,000, but I don't want to skew these numbers drastically. And then just a couple skid steer attachments, $2,000 for a grapple bucket, $3,000 for a skid steer splitter. Then we've got the knuckle boom, which we bought used. It's a very old machine for about $20,000. That's what we gave for it. Of course, if you wanted to replace a machine like that with something new these days, you could be up in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, but I'm just going to put our used purchase value on there of $20,000. Kiln Direct Mini Quick Kiln with baskets, I think that those new is around $140,000. We did not give that for it. We did purchase it used, but I'm just trying to, you know, get an idea of what everything would cost new replacement, or most of the items anyways, except for the few that would just skew it kind of, that doesn't need to be there. And then we got a dump trailer, of course, that we put all our resplits into. And if you've seen the previous videos, you've seen how we process the resplits into those totes. And so that's a $10,000 dump trailer. We tilt that up right there in front of our Built Right splitter, $11,000. I figure that's a pretty fair replacement value for that piece of equipment. Of course, it's not new anymore by any means either. But wanted to show you guys the total number there. I had added it up previously, and then I just added a few line items there after I kind of rethought my list here, and we're right at $511,700. So a pretty significant number there, and some equipment costs, there's no doubt about that. And I mean, of course, there's tons of other costs involved, but I just wanted to kind of go over the majority of the equipment that, you know, that we're using to process firewood on a daily basis. So it's quite an investment to be able to make firewood at the scale that we make it at. I mean, not saying that you can't do it other ways, but we right now aren't a full-time firewood operation. We're not dedicating all our time to that. We have other avenues to make that we try to generate income through, and we hope to phase those out, or at least the landscape installation portion, and focus more on the firewood and then the landscape supply end of things. But what I'm getting at is, you know, we've invested in this equipment because we don't have the time to invest just to be constantly making firewood with something that would, you know, obviously take a lot more time to make the same amount of firewood. You know, and I mean, it could be done, and I've thought about it so many different ways, thought about it over the years. Should we have invested this much? Or, you know, this is an evolution. It's not like we went out and just got all this all at once. I mean, we started doing firewood a long time ago, and that's something I really want to get into our past one of these days and make a video with myself and my brother and kind of talk y'all through where we started, you know, and how we've gotten to where we are, because it definitely didn't happen overnight. It's been quite a long process to get to where we are right now, and we're still changing our thoughts every day and not sure exactly what direction to go in, but we feel like this is going places, and we like the firewood. Like what we're doing, and but like I said, I mean, we started out with just a log splitter and a chainsaw, just like everybody else, for sure. I was really young, you know, in high school when we first started making firewood, and you know, thought that, you know, it sold well in our area, and it was no problem selling out, you know, every time we ever made any firewood every winter. So we stuck with it, and it's definitely grown ever since. And it's been a good business, but like I say, it took a long time to get to have this much equipment. We have had one other processor in the past, and it was a Built-Right. I can't remember the exact model, but it was one of their top end models. It was a 75 horsepower Kubota, I believe. You know, bar and chain processor, of course, and that was a really good starter processor for us. Lasted us, I think, a few years. We ran that before we, you know, got into the Easton made 60C there. So but yeah, that's a good idea of kind of majority of the equipment that we have, you know, involved in the cost. And then you know, of course, there's other things that are just fixed expenses, like the property costs, and there's variable stuff like, you know, I mean, property costs, the electrical bill here, the water bill here, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then of course there's insurance, and there's, you know, the vehicle expenses, all that kind of stuff that goes along with it if you're getting into delivery, and the trailer expenses, replacement cost, and maintenance cost, and all that. And everything adds up, and the more you look at it, the harder it seems to be able to make any money doing anything. But you know, I've crunched these numbers, and I feel like we're doing pretty well. I mean, especially, you know, if I show you guys what this load can be worth, and I'm going to get into that. The way I wanted to do it is look at it worst case scenario, as if all the wood were sold from right here at the property, being picked up, you know, which we sell it loose with a skid steer bucket, and we've got a skid steer bucket that we sell for $150, and it makes about 3/4 of a face cord. About 1 1/3 buckets makes a face cord. So, and that bucket we sell for $150 here. So it makes it pretty easy. We quantify that bucket it makes about $200 face cord for that bucket picked up loose. You know, it's not that bucket, but I'm just saying in that quantity, it's about $200 a face cord picked up. It works out really well, and ends up being about $600 a cord. And I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, oh my gosh, that is a lot of money. And that is the cheapest way that we sell the firewood. Unless you get into the stove wood. You know, stove wood is definitely less expensive, but I don't want to, you know, we don't sell that much of that. That's not really a product we are making. It's just a kind kind of a byproduct of what we're making, essentially. Not something that makes us a whole lot of money. It just kind of offsets the waste. You know, we turn that waste into something that we can sell for just a slight bit above what it costs us. So the costs of that load first will be the first thing that I'm getting into. I've said it in previous videos, and I know I've said it at the beginning of this one. We had 35.01 tons, and we paid $1,505. So it's $43 per ton is what we pay for the logs. But that load cost us $1,505. So I've got the times right there as far as the approximate man hours of what we've got into processing this load into what we have currently. And if you've seen the previous videos, we made 56 IBC baskets full of standard firewood. I also have 2 baskets with the stove wood in it. And then I also just wanted to make note that out of those 56 standard wood baskets, I've got, if y'all are familiar, there's the 275 gallon basket, and then there's that 330 gallon, and 9 of those are the 330 gallon basket. So that would essentially make it where you pretty much have 58 standard baskets. So for the purpose of my math, we're just gonna call it 56 baskets of finished wood. What we found is about 5 of those baskets ends up making a cord. So 5 of those baskets, if you just divide 56 by 5, we get 11.2 cords of finished wood. And then of course there's that little bit of stove wood. So, but then I've gone ahead and divided that 35 tons by the 11.2 cords, and we end up with 3.12 tons per cord, which that actually kind of shocked me a little bit. I thought it was going to be closer to 2.5 tons per cord, you know, somewhere definitely below 3. I thought it would be a little bit below 3 for sure, but that number's not that far off. I mean, but definitely whenever we've calculated things in the past, we've definitely had that number, a smaller number. So we thought we were getting a little bit more wood per tractor trailer than we actually are. And that's a good thing to know. I mean, granted, this is all oak, and that number can definitely fluctuate based on how long the logger or wood yard held onto the logs prior to scaling them out and bringing them to us. So definitely keep that in mind. And of course, the species of the wood makes a huge difference. Oak is probably the densest, heaviest species. You know, I mean, hickory's super heavy too. You know, which is primarily the 2 species that we deal with most here is going to be oak and hickory. We get just a little bit of cherry. I wish we could get more of it, but cherry is hard to come by, and but it is definitely a lot lighter weight than your oak and your hickory. But a big factor in that is honestly how long the logs sit, cut down, of course, before they get scaled out. But I think this is probably kind of worst case, because it's pretty dang, all this wood was pretty much, you know, fresh cut, or pretty darn fresh cut anyways, we'll say. So it took a total of, you know, close to 5 hours to process it, and that's myself doing it, 1 man, you know. So all these are just man hours, not 2 men working on it or anything like that. It was 10 live deck runs, so I mean, I'm getting about 3.5 tons per live deck, which is, you know, great information for me to know. Of course, that number can fluctuate based on the length of the log just real drastically. If you're running 8-foot logs versus 30-foot logs, you're not going to yield near as much per live deck, and the live deck certainly is not going to weigh that much. But we're yielding a little over a cord per live deck, 1.12 cords per live deck based on this particular tractor trailer. So that is good. And I mean, when I'm talking a cord, I am talking true cords, not face cords. 128 cubic feet. So 3 face cords. You know, and we are cutting our wood to 16-inch lengths. So, you know, if you were to put it in one single stack, if this is easier to visualize for everybody, it would be a stack that's 4 feet tall, and it would be 24 feet long. You know, that's what a true cord is. So, and just what came off that processor there filled 47 baskets. You know, the rest of it was filled using resplits, and the resplitting time took approximately 2.5 man hours, and filled about 9 of the baskets, 9 of the 56 baskets. And then filling those baskets, you know, the way that I do it, I put and this included time to place the baskets out and fill them and everything. So getting the forks, putting them out, you know, swapping from forks to bucket and filling them. And if you've seen the previous videos, you've seen how I fill them using our 2-yard bucket. It takes about 1.5 of those buckets to fill 2 of the IBC totes. and I heap them up a good bit so that then I can get a guy to help me shuffle them down to where they can be stacked. But filling those baskets took about an hour and a half of 1.5 man hours essentially. And then shuffling the tops of them, you got to kind of pick up some pieces that fall, and then, you know, kind of get the tops where they're ready to be stacked. That took about 1 hour. And then stacking the baskets with a skid steer took me about 1 hour. And this can all fluctuate based on proximity of where you're putting the baskets in relation to where you're filling them, of course. And you know, all that kind of stuff can definitely affect the how long this were to take. And I mean, the process that you're taking to do it, I mean, of course, is not going to be the same for everybody, but I just wanted to have a good idea and give you guys a good idea how long it takes us. And then resplitting that stove wood would take about an hour. So, I mean, we've got a total man hours, including the stove wood, of 11.75, but honestly, the man hours I really care about is prior to the stove wood, because the stove wood's almost just kind of a byproduct that we don't really earn anything on. But so we're at 10.75 man hours total, then we'll say, for the 11.2 quarts, which, if you guys are able to do the math there real quick, 11.2 divided by 10.75, we're at 1.04 man hours per finished cord to get it into a finished position for storing and seasoning. Which I know to a lot of you guys that probably sounds like an absolute ton of time. You know, you're thinking, I can make a quart an hour with my Easton Made Ultra, or something like that. But and you may be able to, but I mean, you know, you got to factor in everything, and this is factoring in everything. You know, from log all the way to finished product, storing it. You can certainly do it quicker with this equipment if I chose to not run it through a cleaner or a sorter or, you know, anything like that. If I just went straight up a conveyor, straight into a truck, you can easily pump out 3 quarts an hour, you know, depending on the diameter of the wood. If you're in big diameter wood, you could do way more than that. You're not going to be putting out a quality finished product and you know, that meets our standards and our customers' expectations, let's just be honest. So, but beyond this, I mean, this kind of covers the time involved, covers some of those upfront costs of the equipment, of course. And I really think that that's important to know before I get into these numbers, because some of these numbers are going to seem too good to be true, and they are. I mean, I kind of wanted worst case scenario numbers and best case scenario numbers, meaning if we were to sell it all picked up in buckets here versus sell it all kiln dried, you know, which we do have our own kiln here as well, you know, sell it all kiln dried, delivered, stacked, you know, right where the customer wants it, cleanest delivery, you know, I mean, just the whole 9 yards there. The price difference in the two is very drastic, and of course the cost for us is drastic as well, as far as what it costs us to operate that kiln and to own that kiln, and the delivery costs are, I've got all that broke down too, and I may not, the delivery cost may be a little bit off because it seems high to me, but I think we're still profitable even at that estimation. But this is kind of our waste, or our byproduct, which is the stove wood here, and I calculated the total weight of all of this. So the IBC totes, and of course I took the, you know, if you had seen the previous video, I took the weight of the tote filled, and this is the stove wood totes. Took the weight of the tote filled minus the empty weight and got my, you know, my net right here, and I did that for the tote 1 and tote 2 of the stove wood. And then I went ahead and added both of those numbers together right here, and this is how many pounds of stove wood we've got right here. And so that's 1.487 tons at 2,974 pounds, and we're paying $43 a ton, and so that's $63.94 in stove wood. And like I said, it doesn't really make us that much money. That amount of stove wood, once it's resplit, which is going to take a good one to 1.5 man hours for sure, and we're only getting $180 for that if someone comes to pick that wood up here after it's been resplit. So it's not a big money maker, but there is some profit in it, and it definitely gives, if we have any downtime and just need something to do, it's, that's kind of when we do it. I don't like focus on making stove wood. We just put it in those baskets, and if we get any time, we'll go ahead and make some of it. And then our debris, which is our, even more depressing number. This is just complete waste. Like, we don't get $1 for this, but we certainly pay for it. We pay $43 a ton for everything, including our waste, which, is all the fines and kindling and everything that we don't want our end customer to have, and so that goes through our disc cleaner, and that gets the majority of it. And then there's definitely still some in our finished wood that will get sorted out as we get ready and load out for delivery. So I've included that in here as well. But the 2 hoppers that we weighed, and this was the first one, here's the weight. So we're at 3,403 pounds. The hopper itself weighs 1,396 pounds empty. So our net there is 2,009 pounds on that first one. Then the second one, this is the one that had a little bit out from under the disc cleaner, and then I went ahead and loaded some sawdust in it and just a little bit more debris that was around the conveyor and stuff. So we're at 3,563. We got the weight of the hopper at 1,394, and so our net there is 2,169, and that's that debris and sawdust. So I went ahead and added both those numbers up. We're at 4,178 pounds. And then I went ahead and just thought, I'm going to add a number into this that I feel like is about what we get. We rack all this wood out, and I think, by the time we do that, we probably have another 700 pounds of debris. That's just kind of a guesstimate. I think it's going to be fairly accurate. So, that puts us at 4,878. That brings us to 2.439 tons on strictly our debris that just gets thrown away and burnt. So it's pretty depressing. But out of that tractor trailer load, that 2.439 tons, we have to pay for that just like all of it, and it's $43 a ton. So that's $104.87 of complete, just trash, just waste. But out of a $1,505 load. So I'm curious to know what percentage that is. Let's just go ahead and try to figure that out real quick. So that is 7%. So basically 7% of everything that we buy is trash. There's ways of doing it and creating less debris and less waste. If you were to cut everything with a chainsaw and split it with a single way wedge on a splitter, or even a 6-way wedge or a 4-way wedge or whatever, you're gonna have less debris. There's no doubt about that. But then your trade-off is going to be your time and sacrificing your body. I know, right now my back is absolutely killing me. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this right now, is just to rest my back. And it's not from this, it's from the years prior to running like this. If I had been running like this the whole time, I think my back probably wouldn't be hurting near as bad as it is right now. But it's just that years of building up to this that took its toll on my body. There's no doubt about that. But I think that pretty much covers that page, which is great information to have. If you're running a 16-way box wedge with a firewood processor, I would say you're going to have about 7% waste, which is great to know. I just now found that out along with you guys, so that is great to know. I'm glad that we're taking the time to do this. I hope you guys are benefiting from it as well. I think I'm gonna probably wrap this one up just like that, and then on the next video is gonna be going through our sales numbers, and then we'll go into a few more costs as well associated with the wood being picked up here, as well as delivered, and I'll get into what we charge for each delivery versus picked up, and kiln dried versus seasoned. Even going to get into doing it by the bag, which we do it by the 0.75 cubic foot bag, and I know a lot of guys think that's the way to sell firewood for your highest margin, but in my case, I've actually ran my numbers, and it's not. We definitely make more in other ways other than bagging it up and picking it up here. So yeah, we'll get into all that on the next video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this helps a lot of you guys, and You know, I really wish I could have found a video similar to this years ago. It would have definitely helped us, you know, helped with the direction that you want to go with firewood. You know, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to answer anything that I can. Not that I know everything by any means. We're still learning and growing just like you guys. So, but we're doing our best and trying to make something out of it. And I mean, you know, if I can help anybody, definitely let me know. So if you guys haven't gone back and watched those previous videos, it definitely helped just so you can see, you know, at least these last couple leading up to this one, they kind of led into this video, and the same goes for the next one. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next one.